Hey there, traders. This is Sam with your E-mini futures market recap for Thursday, October 24, 2024. Time is currently 8:04, a lot of fours. So what are we looking at? This isn't the usual 1-minute chart that I use for trades. This is an hourly chart. On this hourly chart, I have the triangle consolidation pattern drawn on, as well as this longer term trend line that we had on the daily chart. So it's easy to see here where yesterday they got below this important area, the bears took over, drove price down. Well, guess what? So far in the overnight session, price has been pushed back up to recover most of yesterday's losses. I just want to show you how using this hourly chart where they're at. With the 24-hour session turned on, you can see that price has already bumped up against the underside of the lower part of that triangle. The bulls would really like to get price back up in the middle of that area and fight the other areas of overhead resistance, which, as you can see, aren't insignificant. So these are our levels for today, and along with these trend lines, they will probably present some challenges for the bulls to get through. So with most days, there are three possibilities on the board. One, they could go higher. Yesterday was maybe just a fake out and the big picture bullish sentiment is still valid. Price goes up and fights through the overhead resistance identified for today. The second possibility is that this overnight rally is the actual fake out and the bears will step back in, drive price lower still. While they recaptured some important areas and moving averages on some smaller time frames, they still need to contend with these trend lines that price got under yesterday. We see them starting to fight the underside of them now. So the question is, will the bears succeed in this fight and price continues to go lower? That's the question for possibility number two. The third possibility, of course, is that everything goes to sleep and price basically goes sideways. Anything can happen, but my gut tells me they probably won't go to sleep today. One reason that they might not go to sleep is that there is a PMI data release at 9:45 a.m. this morning. So I want to be careful about entering trades around that time because that data release could be an excuse for them to move price around more than I'd want to deal with in a small scalp trade. So we're back to the 1-minute chart per usual, and these are the lines, and I'll probably include that hourly chart showing those trend lines, the triangle pattern, and so forth in the email that I send out just so everyone's on the same page. So whatever happens, per usual, we'll come back to this chart after the closing bell to discuss the aftermath and talk about where we landed in the 80-20 game. 80% chance we'll end the day in the green, 20% chance we'll give something back to the market. Either way, we'll likely learn something in the process. Catch you on the other side. It is now after 7 p.m. What can we say about the levels and any trades that resulted from them? Well, there was one trade. Should be obvious to see which level was hit. It was the gap left over from yesterday, which is the close, and at least in that area. I'll run through what you would have done if you had all the levels from this morning, or if you had this level, and a basic understanding of how to manage trades in the E-minis when price in the SPY reacts at or around these levels. So they came into 577.87. As adjusted, that's 577.92. So a long position would have been entered when the spiders hit 577.92 right here. This is about 11:48 a.m. So this little drop right here at this level can sometimes be a good sign when you see that. While it might make the average retail trader maybe panic and second guess this long trade here and maybe want to jump out at a loss right here, or even worse, maybe reverse the trade immediately, there are other things to consider. In fact, I almost called this whole area like a zone, like this gap left over plus about 50 to 60 cents below. But even though I decided not to do that, it doesn't really change the fact that there are other things, or there were other things down in this area that could add some validity to this area being decent support. It really depended on the time of day. So it just actually worked out when they got down here better than if they got there earlier, actually. We'll look at some things in a minute. So what I'm saying is by the time the spiders got down here, the timing was getting ripe for a reaction in the other direction. So we'll look at some other things that I saw that happened in real time that made me want to stay in this long position because I took this trade here. But we're going to be consistent about this. If you bought E-mini contracts at this level and waited the trade out for a bit, there would have come a time when you would have incurred a fumble and reversed the trade. It was on their way back down the second time here because they didn't give you the base hit. In fact, here's what we're looking for. You're looking for a base hit of 40 cents in the E-minis, as you know, which is 4 points. And this is not a near miss of your profit objective, just halfway home. And your fumble threshold was down here. So 52, there's your 40 cents. So there's your reference levels. So on their way back down, you would have jumped out, reversed the position, and you would have gained a quick 4 points, slightly more actually. So it was like 7 points out of the money at that reversal, and then another 4 points on a base hit if you're strictly just treating that like a process. And you might ask, well, would you want to use this level on the short side for a recycle trade for a bounce down lower? They got below it, and I adjusted this down toward price 5 cents just to keep it consistent. The timing was okay, just barely. I would have liked to see more time go by before they came back up there and hit this level. But by this time of the day, it was around 12:30 or so, there were several clues that price was likely going to go up, and you should have really just stayed in that long position after all. So no, you would have not taken a recycle trade. You had some clues on the board, which I'll show you in a minute. But first, here is the live recording of the trade that I took at 577.92. So remember what we just discussed. Not only was I willing to stay in this trade, even after they didn't get close enough to my base hit profit target when they came back up, I was even ready to buy again a couple times when they retraced and came back down. So they did go a little lower than I liked, but it was worth waiting it out. So I started by buying 3 contracts. You can see that. Planning to take off 2 at the normal 4-point base hit, and then trail the remaining contract up to squeeze more points. And they came back down again, or when they came back down again, I started to see signals that this trade had the potential to work out pretty well. So I bought 2 more times. You see that right there at the market, just a couple different locations when they pulled back. And then ultimately I bought another contract when they got pretty low. So I'm long 5 at this point. And with that position size, I didn't add any more. That's kind of getting to the point where I don't want to go too much higher than that because I don't know if they're going to go much lower. But like I said, clues were happening definitely by now. So with this long position of 5 contracts, I wanted to take off 4 here and trail the remaining contract for more points with the trailer. I think it was an 8-point trailer. There was something off in how the trailer was calculated. So you'll see some weird things like this is not where this was. The trailer didn't represent that amount of dollars and points. It was, so basically I bagged, you saw the $31,430 of the first 4 contracts. The other part of this trade netted $570, which is about 11 points with the last contract. So total about it was a clean $2,000 with this total with the 5 contract positions. So we can watch the rest of this trade play out. Again, those numbers, I don't know, kind of wacky. I'm not sure what it was. By the way, I'll pause this to talk this through. I put this, you know what? I need to show you. I had a line, 2 lines. I had this horizontal line here. I got a clue that this could be an interim top, and I want to see if I jumped out here, it would have made a little bit more, but I let them come down and stop me out. And the vertical line was just kind of my point in time. So then what I did is I took those off and just put a little circle there. That was going to say just to tell me, was I right? Was that the place that they were going to come back down quite a bit? But that was just an interim pullback, something I saw on a shorter time frame, I think a 5-minute chart. So that's what that's all about. Doesn't really mean anything because at this point I was out of the trade and it wasn't too bad. I'm not going to complain about $2,000. It just took some time to play out. Before we look at the daily chart, let's look at here. So they found a low around this area. Now this could have been a zone. It wasn't. So it's not a factor at this point, but let's just say around 576.70 would have been a good place to know there was some support down here or additional support. So I'll just put a line here, 576.70. So here's that 576.70 on the daily chart. The lowest that price got to today was 576.57. So there's kind of the place they bounced. So I just want to point out on the daily chart, it was right here at the 20-period moving average. So that was something just to have in the back of your mind. But if we go all the way down to 15-minute chart, price opens up here. They've been dropping all day to this point. Now it's 11:48. I think was when we went into that level at 5. It was 92 on the long side. So they're coming down here. So the time it took them from the first 15-minute candle of the day to they were down at the level. When this 15-minute candle closed, they gave a pretty decent tail candle. Now there's not a ton of volume, but this is one of these signals. So you got good timing. Timing's right in terms of number of candles. You have this tail candle. The 20-period moving average isn't so important, but we just move around to different time frames. On a 30-minute chart, it was right at their 200-period moving average. So another 15 minutes later, it's 12:30. So the 12:30 candle close, which is also an hourly close because it's on the half hour, you got another tail candle. Volume's picking up a little bit. Also, timing's right. So they're fighting this area. So while you could expect some type of retracement, especially if I go back to the 15-minute chart here, after this tail candle, they're up here again. That's why I bought again, like halfway down, like a 50% retracement of this candle or maybe a bit lower. They end up going, and this is what I'll call a fake out. They ended up going lower and closing one 15-minute candle under the low of this, which can be a negative sign. But I kind of consider this whole thing a fake out. Just kind of thought powers that be want like retail and amateur traders to think that price is going lower. They want them to get out here. This is where the liquidity is, and then they're going to jump in. So you get this reversal, almost a reversal candle on the 15-minute chart, and that makes a tail candle on the 30-minute chart, right around this 200-period moving average. So it's not likely they're going to stay below this for much longer. Doesn't mean that they're going to get a huge push, but definitely enough to ride this thing out. So that's what I did. You saw what happened. Another, 11, 12, 13 points or so. Once I got above my original back on the daily chart, does this tell us anything that we could derive some meaning from in terms of where price might go tomorrow or in the near future? Not really. They just closed right in the middle. Wish I could say more, but there's really nothing. There's no signals at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days down. They could go another day or so or more. They could get below the 20-period moving average. If they want to pick up from here, that can happen. Anything can happen. Maybe not as likely at this point. Did we look at an hourly chart? I don't think we did. Just hovering over the 100-period moving average. So really not bearish or bullish, honestly, in the big picture. We have a weekly close coming up. So let's take one look at that. Like the monthly chart, which I don't need to look at this point. It's just they're extended. I don't want to use that term too much, but it wouldn't be too surprising for them to go sideways or come down a little farther. But this candle could change somewhat by tomorrow. We got one more day in the week. So looking at it tomorrow is going to make more sense to see if we have any clues. Over on the tracking logs, the first one is the playing by the rules log. And the one level we traded was a fumble if you were playing by the rules and not really taking into account anything that should have told you that price was going to go higher down in that area, like those signals that you had on the 15-minute and the 30-minute and other charts. So there you go, 4 points or 7 points given back on that fumble. Reverse got 4 points. You netted -3, and there is your loss potential based on number of E-mini contracts traded. And then on my trades was really a net 8 points with that 5 contract position. Specifically, it was like a little over 7 points with the first 4, and then maybe 11 points on the last 1 contract. Anyway, a clean $2,000 with 5 contracts. So that's a wrap. If you found today's recap helpful, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. Thanks to those of you who are providing your contact information, and I'm giving you these levels in the morning. I appreciate the trust. So subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications so you can stay updated. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or thoughts about today's trade. I appreciate hearing from you. Thanks again for watching. Talk at you tomorrow morning. We'll be back with new levels and another game plan. Have a great rest of your day.